From Oscar Steakhouse, inside the Plaza Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, you're on the corner of Main Street. Welcome to the only podcast produced by and recorded in the Las Vegas Hotel Casino. From gaming to dining to entertainment to sports to Vegas history, this is the place to be for the inside scoop, because this is the place to be downtown. Now, here's Plaza CEO Jonathan Jossel.
Welcome to downtown Las Vegas. My name is Jonathan Jossel. I'm the CEO here of the Plaza. I see some familiar faces. Mr. Cherry, welcome back. Mr. Asher, Russell, welcome back. We appreciate you guys. Where's Dennis Gutwald? My attorney, the best gaming attorney in all of Las Vegas. Dennis Gutwald, welcome. Casey, I can't address you. You're wearing a t-shirt that's very inappropriate. What's wrong with you? Thank you all. Thank you for being here. We got Mike Jansen, the city manager. Welcome, Mike. Of course, Mark Davis of the Raiders. Welcome, Mark. Nice to have you. Thank you. Okay, so whose first dinner series is this, by show of hands? All right, we got a couple of newbies. All right, a few more newbies. So the format is simple. Oscar talks. We have a subject. Our subject tonight is a good one. Oscar will talk for about 20, 30 minutes, and then we have a Q&A where you can ask him anything you want about anything you want, and he will do his best to answer it. And I think that's pretty much the format. It goes on a podcast, and there is an important piece of housekeeping. If it's your first one, please do not talk. He will throw you out. Keep it quiet while he's talking. It's very personal to him that no one talks while he's talking. And normally I introduce Oscar and Carolyn at the start of the night, but tonight is a very special night because it is the last night of Oscar and Carolyn as mayors of Las Vegas after 25 years of doing these dinner series. It's pretty amazing to think what they've accomplished in 25 years and the dedication they've shown to this city. So in front of you, which we've never done before either, there is a glass of champagne. There's a glass of champagne on everyone's table in front of you. I ask you all if you could raise your glass of champagne and do a toast to the mayors of Las Vegas, Oscar and Carolyn Goodman. And now we have, coming up from the team of Oscars over there, Mrs. Mayor, if you could pay your attention, we got some sparklers and and some flowers for the mayor. So, from the greatest chef. So raise a glass and thank you to Oscar and Carolyn for 25 years as mayors of Las Vegas. And with that, I will turn it over to Oscar to address the crowd. Oh wait, I forgot to mention, my wife is here tonight, Emily. Thank you for being here, Emily. And now we can begin.
Thank you, Johnny. You saved yourself on that one. And Johnny's wrong. I won't throw you out if you make noise when I'm talking. I'll have you whacked. Okay? And I'll tell you, I'm in a whacking position because I heard from one of my old clients last week. He's in his 90s, and he says, you know, you did a great job for me, and I would do anything for you. Is there anything you'd like me to do? And there are one or two people with the media that I wanted him to take care of. And he says, well, I have nothing to lose. The worst that happens is they'll catch me, and I'll get 3 squares a day, and nobody will bother me. And if there are any people from the media who are here, please raise your hand. Behind me? Oh, Katz? Well, he's not really with the media, he's with the RJ. What is he doing, waving a flag? That won't save you. Well, I got to tell you, before I give my toast, I want my 2 former city managers when I was the mayor, who are now showgirls, to please join me up here. They don't want to do it? Yeah, Emily, come on up, please. Michelle, come on up, please. Be good sports. I can't talk without having my showgirls next to me. They were both my showgirls when I was with the city and accompanied me every place, and they married rich guys, which is very, very nice. Aren't they beautiful? All right, have a seat, girls. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. They're not as beautiful as my wife, but that's their problem, not hers. You know, everybody, I'm so happy we're all together tonight. Who's talking? You thought that was funny, didn't you? You're not funny. Okay, well, apologize. Okay. Ooh, boy. I'll tell you, it's been such a privilege having the dinner series and being able to speak to people who may be the dumbest people I've ever addressed in my life, because the same questions are asked time and time again. The answer changes, of course, because I'm not under oath, but they don't remember from one time or another. I don't know whether it's the booze that they're serving here or what the story is, Johnny, but the truth of the matter is we're so lucky to live in this town where there's a real genuine love and concern for one another. Where else would you find people who share a common goal, and that is to applaud me? And which is so nice. It's so nice to be amongst friends, and they come from all over, actually, which is a great thing. And I worked very, very hard on this week's talk. I really did. It's good for me. It's almost like therapy, where I'm able to get these gin cells working again, and that's the reason that even at my age, I'm in such good shape, because my gin cells are bigger than anybody's in this room as a result of the Bombay Sapphire, and they're almost like they are like a geniuses, which is wonderful, because I am a little bit of a genius, and I'm a little crazy too. But last night I woke up, and Carolyn always wakes me up about 2 o'clock in the morning, and she has important questions like. What was the name of the fellow that I was sitting next to 4 years ago at one of your speeches? And for some reason, my memory is such, because of my dictic, it pops right up, and she goes right to sleep, and I can't go to sleep the rest of the night. Well, last night, she woke up and asked me a question. And I started to toss and turn and toss and turn, and I wrote out a long, long speech in order of anticipation of speaking here. I was going to be talking as to why I ran for mayor, and I may finally get to that somewhere down the line, but I realized that there are two questions that are always asked of me at each one of these dinner series. And it's amazing, because everybody raised their hand. They've been to prior dinner series, and they still don't know the answers, because most of you are morons. But I did have an epiphany, and I think I'm finally going to get the answer, because it dawned on me what the real answer to the questions are. And it's important. The two questions, the first one is it better today, or was it better when the mob ran Las Vegas? And that's something that everybody wants to know. And the other question is, how can you represent some bad people or people that you know are guilty? Well, I'll take number one first. No, I won't. I'll take number two first. You know, Carolyn, when she first met my dad, who was a lawyer back in Philadelphia, asked him, how can you represent all these bad people? And he said, don't you know we live in the United States of America, and our Constitution and the Bill of Rights guarantees effective assistance of counsel under the Sixth Amendment, and that's our responsibility as criminal defense lawyers, and it's not our business to make judgments as to whether a person's guilty or not guilty. We have to make sure that the system is followed, that the Constitution is not breached, that the prosecution does not engage in prosecutorial misconduct, and that's our job. And if they do their job, then they're entitled to get a conviction, but short of that, they're not entitled to do that. And most people understand what I'm talking about there. They resent the fact that some of the people I represented were unpopular, but they understand that they're entitled to the right to counsel and effective assistance of counsel. And that's what I did for a living. And it didn't dawn on me that the people I thought they were talking about were the bad guys. What they were really talking about is the government deep down inside, because the government are the bad guys. And that all came to me when my son, who's a JP, was coming over. He comes over every Sunday, less Sundays than most Sundays, where we celebrate together, Mark. And he said, "What do you think's happening to Peanut?" I said, "Who's Peanut? How many people know who Peanut is?" Okay, well, Peanut is a squirrel. And Peanut's mommy was killed by a car up in upstate New York, and a fellow found Peanut on the highway and brought the little squirrel home and raised the squirrel. And then recently, the authorities in New York came to Peanut owner home, and they had a search warrant. And as in all search warrants, I hope you have to never undergo the experience of a search warrant. The authorities, in their arrogance, bust in the door, pull out the drawers of your most personal effects, go through them, rifling them with their dirty hands, and never clean it up and never put it back. And this fellow was asleep, and they came into his home because they said that he was keeping peanuts there. And I said, how dare they do that? But I was also saying to myself, I represented Billy Walters, who was the, I guess, one of the best gamblers that has ever been known from Las Vegas, and had been representing Billy for years. And Billy and myself, we had a wonderful relationship, went to the Kentucky Derby together, and Billy was a part of the computer group, and Billy knew what he was doing and was relying on my advice because the case law said that all he was a big bettor. He was a whale, but he wasn't a bookmaker, and it was only the bookmakers that were breaking the law at the time, and the mere bettor, no matter how big the bettor was not subject to criminal prosecution, and the FBI was too dumb to understand this. So Billy made a mistake, and he tried to convince an FBI agent behind my back that Oscar told me not to talk to you because I can't trust you, and I didn't mind that because I didn't trust him, and he knew that I'd be able to straighten this out. I wasn't breaking any law, and I called the prosecutor, and I said, I know you're investigating Billy, and he's never violated the law in his life. He is a giant bettor, but he is not a bookmaker, and if you ever should indict him, all you have to do is call me up on the phone, and I will bring him into the booking process, and you'll have nothing to worry about because he's probably one of the nicest fellows you'd ever want to meet. And it was a lady prosecutor, and she was mean-spirited. I think, what's a lady who doesn't like men? They're not misogynists, are they? What do they call it? What are they? What? Whoopies. I don't get that, but okay. I really don't get it. I don't think he Whoopi? What about Whoopi Goldberg? Well, what happened to Squirrel? That's a good question. What happened to Squirrel? The New York authorities busted in with a search warrant, and they seized Peanut, which was the squirrel's name, and they opened up every single drawer. I don't know whether they're looking for acorns or more squirrels or what, and they placed the squirrel into custody and tested the squirrel for having rabies, and the squirrel passed the test. And then, for no reason at all, they euthanized, and for those of you who don't know, and I bet 99% don't know because you're not the brightest people I've ever talked to, but they killed the poor squirrel, and that was the end of Peanut. And I'm saying Billy Walters had the same experience. The only difference was they didn't kill him. They would have liked to kill him. And I spoke to the prosecutor, and I said, I know you're investigating Billy. All you have to do is pick up the phone, tell me if you want him to come in, if he's indicted, and I'll bring him in. Well, Billy's at his home in Las Vegas, in Rancho, what is it, sweetheart? Near Rancho, what is it? Rancho Bel Air. He and his beautiful wife, Susan. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, the door is broken down, and half the FBI here knocks into the house, starts opening drawers and searches it, and then they take Billy out, and instead of calling me, take him and his wife out while they're in their pajamas, and she's in her, oh, don't look that way. That's why I hate them. That's why I hate them, because they are no good. They're no better today than they were on that situation, no better today than the people who euthanized poor Peanut. And I said, how could you do this? I said, here I am. I'm his lawyer. I said I would bring him in. They said, we don't care what you said. We're following procedure here. And I said, why did you do it? They said, well, we didn't want him to find out. On the way out of his house, where is he? Where's the cats? Well, his newspaper was in the driveway, and he passed it while he was in full body shackles, and his wife was in full body shackles in their pajamas. The RJ said, Billy Walters indicted. So that was one of the lies that the federal government was involved in, and I will tell you, I had probably more federal cases than any lawyer in the country, and I was never in a federal case where the FBI or the IRS or the ATF or the DEA didn't tell at least a lie. Now, a lie is when somebody raises their hand in a courtroom and they swear to God to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. So help them, God. And in every single case, I caught them in a lie, and that's one of the reasons I had a halfway decent track record, because the juries would rather vote in my favor or my client's favor than to allow the government, our government, to get away with not following the rules and not following the law and engaging in this kind of misconduct. So it really didn't matter to me. It did not matter to me whether my client did or didn't do anything. That wasn't my job. My job was to make sure that the rules were followed, the Constitution wasn't broken, and that I would do that to the best of my might. And at least my clients understood that, and juries understood that, and that's why I represented them. And it dawned on me last night when I had my epiphany, and that's when Carolyn woke me up. I had an epiphany, and I said, I think I'm going crazy because I'm having this epiphany, and I'm thinking about the two questions that everybody always asks me when I go to Oscars. The first question was, how can you represent all these bad people? The truth of the matter was, I'm not telling you my clients were angels, they weren't. But the bad people were the liars. They were the government agents who lied, and it's hard to swallow it because we want our government to be honest. That's what the system is all about, but they weren't, and that's the reason that I won my cases. I'm not a moralist. It didn't matter to me whether my client did or didn't do it as a criminal defense lawyer, as long as I protected their rights, and I never had anybody complain if their rights weren't violated and the Constitution was followed as to whatever penalty had to be exacted upon them. So that's the answer to the first question. Does anybody not understand that? Because next time I come, Jonathan Jostle's going to say, why don't you tell everybody why you could represent all these bad people? I say, every 6 weeks when I make these little talks, he always wants to know, and the thing that's bothering more than anything, how can you represent all these bad people? And I'm saying, you know, last night I concluded I'm representing the white hats, and the government are the black hats. So, Jonathan, will you please learn? We're done? After 10 years of talks, we're done? I thought I was just trumped. I thought I was fired. Okay, so we got that straightened. Then the second question was, and I know that you're going to want to find out the answer to this. What was better, the old days or the new days? Okay, well, I'm going to tell you why. The old days were different. The old days were a day of characters. There were people who lived here who had nicknames like Wingy. He had a little thalidomide arm. He worked at, I can't help it. His mother took thalidomide, but had his little arm. And every time I tell you about these poor people and their disabilities, I don't feel guilty because they didn't mind having their disabilities recognized. And there was Wingy, and then there was Hunchy. And you all know what happened to Hunchy. He was a hunchback. And some people called him the camel. And he was working at the Tower of Pizza. Does everybody remember the Tower of Pizza? It was down at the end of the strip, and Bobby was there. And every Sunday, Bob Martin, who was the odds maker for the entire world, he would bring Philadelphia steak sandwiches there, and all the bettors and all the BMs who were in town, they went by and they socialized, and it was a very good town in that respect. And I represented, and I'm a little person. Now, don't get upset, but they called him the midget. And he responded to the midge. And as a matter of fact, it was Bobby the midget. And you couldn't understand a word he said. Bobby's the one who came to me and wanted me to represent him in front of the grand jury because the FBI was spending all of our taxpayer dollars following him. And they would see him coming out of Churchill Downs or one of the other sports books which were on the strip. In those days, we didn't have the beautiful sports books. We didn't have the wonderful facilities that we have today. And Bobby would get the line off of the chalkboard, basically, at the sports books at one of the shopping center places along the strip, and he would get on the phone, and he would call the line around the country to bookmakers and bettors and give them the line. And he had to jump up to put the money in a payphone. And they were taking pictures of us with their taxpayer money. This is what the FBI does. That's great. They were taking pictures of this little fella jumping up, putting dimes into the coin-operated phones. And the FBI served a subpoena upon him to come in front of the grand jury. And I get a phone call from little Bobby, and he says, I got to see Oscar. You can't understand a word the guy says. He always had a cigar in his mouth. And I said, well, what could I do for you? Can I come down? Sure. He said, I got a subpoena. He shows it to me that there's been a grand jury subpoena that he had to go there. And I said, sure, I'll represent you, Bobby. I'm not going to charge you too much money, but you have to follow my advice after every question, because I'm not allowed in the grand jury proceeding with you. You have to come out and tell me what the question is so I can advise you whether or not you should answer it. And of course, I'm going to tell him not to answer it because it might tend to incriminate him, but at least I want the blame to be on me and not on little Bobby. And he said, I understand. I said, you sure you understand, Bobby? He said, I understand. He goes in to the grand jury room, and I'm looking at my watch. 5 minutes goes by, no Bobby. 10 minutes goes by, no Bobby. 20 minutes goes by, Bobby comes out. I said, Bobby, you know, you paid me good money. I've been sitting here ready to take all the heat for you. How come you didn't come? He said, you'd be proud of me, Oscar. I said, I'd be proud of you for not coming out and allowing me to tell you to take the Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination. He says, don't worry about it. I took the 2.5. Well, Johnny. All right, now. But we were losing all of our characters, and they were either going to jail, or they were leaving town, or they just didn't want to do what they were doing anymore in the town, which was a very interesting place with characters. Was changing. And my practice was changing because one of my good clients, Tony Spilatro, had been murdered. And I didn't realize how much time I was spending representing him in cases all over the country. And every morning something important of a legal nature was taking place: a grand jury appearance, a trial, a black book hearing. And the exciting was a practice that was so interesting to me. And then when poor Tony got killed, and some of my other cases came to fruition, representing Judge Harry Claiborne before the United States Senate, and Jimmy Chagrin, the assassination of a federal judge down in Texas, my practice became very, very mundane. I saw my wife and 4 children when we were on a cruise in the Caribbean in 1998. I said, you know, I don't like myself anymore. They said, what do you mean, Dad? I said, my practice isn't what it was. I miss the old days. I miss the guys who were part of old Vegas, where they didn't have residencies and concerts. When I grew up, a concert had Beethoven and Brahms and Mozart, not some clown who got up there and took a waste of time. And that's what a concert was. And I said, everything's changed, and I really have to do something different. They said, what do you have in mind, Dad? I said, you know, I've been trying to keep the system honest from the inside. From the outside. I think I'd like to keep it honest from the inside. They said, what do you have in mind, Dad? And I said, I think I'd like to run for mayor. Well, we have a very democratic family with a little d, and we take a vote on anything that affects one another. None of the children had any outstanding loans. So I was sort of on my own. I said, let's take a vote. And Carolyn abstained, and the 4 children voted 4-0 against me. I said, why? They said, Dad, there's no way you could win. You have more baggage than the sky caps out at the airport. I said, don't worry about that. If I file, I'm going to win. And I didn't hire one of these expensive pollsters. My poll was going to Costco. And somebody said, oh, I know you. And I said, I hope so. And then if they smile and they put out their hand and I put out, I knew I had their vote. There was no question in my mind I was going to win. And then where Johnny came from, the geniuses there put up a line at the sports books in London, and the line was 17-1 against me. I don't know whether they recall that. And I said, oh, that doesn't mean I've been against higher odds than that. 17-1 is nothing. And I ran, and I won. And then I won again, and then I won again, and it was the greatest of rides. But then it dawned on me, was it better then or was it better now? And then everything was, it appeared that it was for nothing. It appears that these hotel casinos, which were owned by alleged mafia chieftains, most of whom I represented around the United States, were in competition with each other on their privately owned hotels and casinos, and they were competing and trying to get the best entertainment they could, and it wasn't the same old boring stuff that we have today, in my opinion, and there was an effort to give the customers a bargain and not charge them for parking, which to me is, it's almost un-Las Vegan. It's ridiculous. It's so stupid. At least in some of the places, there are refunds when they come in and they lose their case money. Is that correct? Okay. But to charge for parking in Las Vegas, and you didn't have to pay for a ticket. All you had to do was to tip a maitre d', and they all had maitre d's to the showrooms, and they all had crooked arms, because when you walked in, they would say, "Hi, Mr. Davis," and their hand went like this, and you gave them $5 mark, and you had the best seat in the house, and after 2 or 3 times, even they knew your name, and even Carolyn and myself, when we came here with $87 in our pocket, we went or 1 or 2 or 3 of these things, and they knew our name, and they treated us like we were important people. Now it's like treating people like a piece of meat, and that's why I love this place, because this is old Las Vegas here, and it dawned on me, and this is the answer to my epiphany last night, that the old days, J. Edgar Hoover never admitted that there was a mafia, which was very, very interesting, and I took the same tact as he did, and he was the longest-serving FBI chief in United States history, and they after a while, became involved in the Skim. Now, for those who don't know what a Skim is, it's when a casino cage takes the money and they separate it from the monies upon which they would pay taxes, and they would send the money to the various mob families around the United States, and that's why Las Vegas was really founded. It was the golden egg to the mob, because they were able to get a source of their income from Las Vegas, taking the monies that had been converted, let's say, out of the casinos. And I'm saying to myself, they're the ones they say are the gangsters? I said, today it's worse. And Carol looked at me when I was explaining this to her. I said, this is worse than the mob today, because the Skim that they take today, they get that money from the outrageous salaries that the executives get from these legitimate corporations that have no reason to compete with one another, because they're all giving the same thing to the public, and that's very, very little. And they're not competing with each other. And instead of giving back to our community, they take what I consider to be the equivalent of the Skim, added onto their salaries. They don't have to account to anybody, and then they go down to Southern California and buy a big home right on the ocean, and they enjoy our money, and that's the Skim of today, and that's the reason that we don't have the kind of things that we used to have in the old days, where a handshake was a man's bond, and which was a place which was much nicer to live. Was that concise? Did you understand that? Mark, did you understand what I said? Yeah, Mark's under a degree of shock as a result of what happened last Sunday. He's a good sport. He's fired half of his staff since then, but he's a good sport. He's a good man, too, and a very generous man. He's a guy who does give back to our community, to our charities. So it's with that, Johnny, that I would like to open it up for questions, because I answered the two questions. The questions is, I think that the hotels are the bad guys, and I think that the Skim by them and the way they done it is much more egregious than the mere pittance that the mob used to take off the top and send back to places like Kansas City and Milwaukee and Miami and all the places where I got my fees.
Thank you, Oscar. Thank you, thank you. And of course, I want to thank the Oscars team that makes these nights available. Courtney, Gil, Chelsea, where's the chef? Chef Ben and Nikos are probably running around. You guys are amazing. Thank you very much. If you can't get into a dinner series, you need to talk to Courtney, because she's the gatekeeper of the dinner series. And then at the end of the night, we have a very special, first time ever, we are giving away an Oscar bobblehead for everyone that's here, or every family home. So please see Courtney on the way out. You get a bobblehead. And if you enjoyed his talk, every single talk for about the last 4 years is available on the Corner of Main Street podcast. You can listen to any of his talks going back about 4 years. So with that, we will open it up to the floor. You can ask him anything you want. I mean, if I don't want to answer it, we might move on. But please, let's kick it off.
So I've noticed that Las Vegas bathrooms have outflow period products in them. 55 Clark County.
Hold on. I'm not going to repeat this, so I'll let you all.
So I had a question. I noticed that Las Vegas bathrooms offer Aunt Flo tampons and pads for free in 55 Clark County school bathrooms and some of the Allegiant Stadium bathrooms as well. And I was just curious what you think about offering free period products in the bathrooms as a previous mayor.
It's a plug. It's a setup, but go ahead.
No. I don't know what a tampon is. No, but I'll give you a better one. I hope you have to go to the bathroom tonight. Here at the plaza, on this floor, you'll see my baby picture. Yes, it's on the wall, and that is in lieu of a tampon.
He is telling the truth. On the way to the bathroom, there's a new picture that just got hung today. I encourage you all to check it out. It's iconic. Please, next question.
I was in the restroom tonight.
Hold on. You know what? You're right here. You might as well.
I was in your restroom tonight, and I saw a comment that you said, there is no mob. And I'd like to know who you said that to. Do you believe that? Why you said it? A little story about maybe that comment.
Okay. Certainly. Where did you see that in the restroom? Were you looking for tampons? I don't know, but that was always my position, because I was following the leading law enforcement officer of the United States, J. Edgar Hoover, who was the longest serving head of the FBI from the time that he was put into office until about 1970. About 30 years had gone by. He kept on insisting there's no organized crime, there was no mob, there was no mafia. So it was good enough for him, it was good enough for me. And it was only after the Appalachian meeting, where some 50 crime families met in order to discuss business, that he began to believe that there may be a mob, and started to talk about the mob. And then I had a case up in Boston representing Vinny the Animal Ferrara. Now, nobody called him an animal to his face. I would not do that, because Vinny was a tough dude. And Vinny hired me. He was charged with 3 murders and extortions and everything. And he was charged under RICO with other members of the patriarchal crime family up there, which is a very important crime family in the country. And the government had intercepted, surreptitiously, of course, from a member of that outfit from a meeting that took place where there was actually a taping of a mafia induction ceremony. And it was fascinating because I used to belittle the concept of grown men pricking their fingers and drawing blood and having a card and setting it on fire and saying things to the saint. And I thought it was a joke, and I used to make fun of it, and the juries would laugh along with me. And then one day I get a phone call from a lying prosecutor. This is a guy who lied to get the search warrant. It was a roving search. He lied to the judge, and he lied to the judge at the time of Vinny's sentencing, and he lied, and he lied, and the lie finally caught up with him, and the judge let Vinny out. After Vinny spent 18 years in prison based on this fella's lies, and the prosecutor who called me up was delighted. He says, "You're through, Goodman." I said, "Why am I through this time?" He said, "We recorded a mafia induction ceremony." And I said, "I don't believe it." We were having a hearing on a motion to suppress the contents of the recording. And it was a Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. I'd come home to see Carolyn because I would leave at weeks at a time and figured I'd get 3 or 4 days away from the trial. And I get a phone call from the judge's clerk, "Mr. Goodman, you better come back here because we're reaching a very important juncture in your case, and that is we have the motion to suppress the wiretap, and we think you may be able to do your client some good. You might be able to save his life if you work out something with the government because the judge will support whatever you're going to do if it sounds good to him." So I kissed my wife goodbye and hugged the kids goodbye and went back. And I was sitting down with Vinny and J.R. Russo, who was the number 2 man with the outfit there. And I said, "Fellas, you know, I think I can win this case." I said, "The only thing that's bothering me is the taping of the induction ceremony." I said, "I have no problem with the pricking of the finger, and I have no problem with the placement at the table, with the wine and with the red sauce and the chairs. I have no problem with, the boss calls you and you go and do his bidding." I said, "Vinny, but that part about leaving his mother on her deathbed," I said, "that in order to do the business of the family," I said, "that's going to not ring well with the jury." And Vinny turns to J.R., the underboss. He says, "J.R., we'll leave that line out next time." This is the dumbest audience I have ever seen in my effing life. This is you're either under the influence of, this is ridiculous. I'm wasting my time. Why did he even ask the stupid question?
Great answer. Thank you. Over there. Go ahead. A misandress. She's just letting you know that a misandress is a woman that hates men. A misandress. She looked it up for you. A misandress.
A missing dress has to do with men? I better introduce you to the tampon lady.
All right, here we go. Oh, this is good. I think the mayor should address this one. But the question is, what's the secret to success of your marriage between Oscar and Carolyn? Everyone okay with the mayor answering this one?
You know, I think the truth is respect, trust, and a great sense of humor. That's the truth. My parents said, oh, I need 3? Oh, do I have to say them? Yes, I will. Oh, my God. I've been known for this. There are different letters that are used. My letters are S, S, S. How about some suggestions? Who's the first S? For a wife to keep a husband happy. Never mind, it is. Soup. Oh, that's good. Stuff them. Right. Give every man the food that he loves. Every day, all his life. Stroke him. Tell him how wonderful he is every moment that you are with him. And finally, is a Yiddish word. It's called shtup. Those 3, they don't get them. There are 3 F's that you might use vulgarly. I'm not using them. Stroke them, stuff them, shtup them. And if you can't find it in your Yiddish dictionary, shame on you.
If you don't know the third S, I encourage you to look it up. Please. The question is, did you ever fear for your life or the life of your family?
I never felt for fear for the life of my family, because how does that involve me? But no, I'm just kidding. No, just kidding. No, my family was very well protected by my clients when I would leave town. Fellas like Spilaccio and Cusimano and those guys would all call Carolyn and ask her whether they could do anything for her, make sure if she needed anything, make sure that she was happy and felt secure. So I felt very good from that point of view. With me, I felt very, very safe, because even with the incompetency of the FBI, because they were always following me. I had 27 FBI agents following me at all times, that I figured no one's going to hurt me. So in that regard, I always felt safe. I shouldn't have, though, because the stinking FBI had information that the mob in Chicago was going to put a hit out. And this was all verified. It's all part of the official record. Because my office at 520 South 4th Street was a center for a lot of people who had a lot of problems in town, the mob was going to look for Tony and his brother Michael to come up there, and the instruction was that if you see him come up there, even if he's with Oscar, kill all 3 of them. So that was about as close as I got to it.
All right. Any other questions tonight? Okay, one over here. What is your proudest accomplishment as mayor?
Oh, Carolyn and I go round and round and round with this, but when I was a defense lawyer for all those years, for 40 years, I had to be so circumspect about how I lived my life. I had to be like Caesar's wife, beyond reproach. I couldn't talk to people for fear that they were wired. I mean, guys were found, you won't remember Friendly Fergie's, it was on Sahara. A fellow who had just visited me in my office was found slumped over with a .22 in his head, and on his body he had a tape recorder, having just left my office, and had FBI agents come in and try to entrap me and commit some kind of crime. So I was very insular, and I didn't have the opportunity to do what I do most and probably best, and that's make people happy, because it makes me happy when people are happy. I've always been that way, and the fact that I became free of this kind of introspection by the authorities, and was able to live my life and have friends and talk, and I think that was the best thing that ever happened to me, to be quite frank with you. My whole life was opened up. As a matter of fact, I was asked by the United States Conference of Mayors to be their guest speaker at the Harvard Government School to mayors, because mayors were the most indicted officials in government ever. And my speech was to all the new mayors how not to be indicted. And you know, I was able to open my door. I was able to talk to people, and I was hoping that they would be recorded, because nothing untoward happened in City Hall. I was there, which was a wonderful thing. Nobody was in trouble. Well, I was there as a result of misconduct. Same thing with Carolyn. It's such a pleasure that you had people who were honest and elected and served the best that they could and didn't have to worry that they were on the take. And my experience with that was at my first meeting, I had a feeling that one or more of my council people may have been on the take, because that was a time that the developers were running rampant in Las Vegas, and money meant nothing to them, and a little bit of money here, a little bit of money there went a long way in order to get a zoning matter taken care of. And the first day I was there, I smelled it. And I went down the hall and I said, if any of you are ever caught being dishonest, you'll have not only to contend with me, and you'll contend with my chief of staff. And the guy I hired as chief of staff was my investigator in my law office. His name was Bill Cassidy. And he would wear a trench coat into City Hall, and he'd have like a Columbo hat on and dark-colored glasses, and he carried. And it was a wonderful thing, because whenever I won anything, because some things you wanted and you knew were happening up there and you're not allowed to talk to him, I sent Cassidy down the hall, and he took care of it.
All right, we'll do one more question.
So, Oscar?
Yes.
So, other than the Raiders winning the Super Bowl, do you have a vision for what you would like to see Las Vegas be in the future?
The question is, other than the Raiders winning the Super Bowl, do you have a vision for what Las Vegas should look like in the future?
I'm not as smart as those who are going to make it happen, because Las Vegas is a place that invents itself and reinvents itself and that kind of thing. And we have become, from what was basically when Carolyn and myself got here in 1964, when it was a cowboy town, look what we are today. And we're the #1 in sports with the Las Vegas Aces. And we will be there with our football team shortly, because Mark isn't going to put up with any nonsense too much longer. He was telling me that's going to be on RJ tomorrow. He was telling me he loves his coaching staff. Okay, Cats. Did Cats leave already?
He's there.
Oh, well. Mark has great confidence about everybody on the team. And with that, I'm going to finish my drink.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Dinner will be out shortly. Enjoy the night. Don't forget your bobblehead at the end of the night. Thank you all. Thank you for coming.
You a fan of On the Corner of Main Street? You're listening, so we'll assume that's a yes. So share the love. Rate, review, and tell a friend to subscribe. Also, follow us on Twitter and Instagram @PlazaPod, on Facebook, Plaza Podcast, and feel free to write to the man himself @Jonathan Jossel. We'll see you next time, right here on the corner of Main Street.